Hi, welcome into Shed Talk. I'm your host, Sean, where we have inspirational stories and talk to small business owners all over the country. Also, we get some crazy stories. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, y'all, welcome back into Shed Talk. Got another guest that came in. This isn't her first time that she actually been on the show. She actually was on here a little shy of 3 days from now, a year ago. So it was kind of like an anniversary of her actually being on the show. She has a host of different certifications and license that she has. Welcome in, Autumn. How you doing?
Thanks for having me back. I can't believe it's been almost a whole year. Like, that's insane.
I know time has went past for us. Like it really
It,
has went quick. Yeah, it just goes like that. So, what's up? What's going on?
so yeah, we were kind of briefly talking about how last year around this time I was getting ready to move. I had actually just gone through a pretty big breakup, and I was moving back to Florida. At the time, I was a travel nurse. I'm still a registered nurse, but when I came back to Florida, I was simultaneously starting bodybuilding prep, and I had kind of decided that I wanted to take a step back from nursing for a little bit. One, I had saved up quite a bit of money, and so I was able to do that. But two, um, that's a lot, at once when you're going through something so mentally challenging to go through prep and also have to take care of people for multiple days a week for 12 hours. And sometimes it's just really hard on the mental. So I was like, let me take a step back. And then I focused on growing my coaching business, which has grown since then. Obviously, I'm still in the process of actively growing it. Um, but I actually got a job, believe it or not, with Crunch, of all places. And I pretty much accepted the position. Not that I needed to work for Crunch, but it was a good way to start building up clientele and get my name more well known down here to be able to attract more clients to my own personal business. And since then, I have actually separated from Crunch and I was working for a skin grafting company as a nurse, and I ended up meeting somebody who is now my business partner, and I am launching a mobile IV clinic next month, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
been a
So
wild ride.
I see you had a whole bunch going on. So before we dive deep into everything, what are your certifications on like, what do you have a license in?
Yeah, so well, obviously, as a registered nurse, I have my bachelor's degree. I've been trauma certified, and obviously, CPR comes with that as well. And then as a trainer, I'm nationally, so the National Academy of Sports Medicine, or NASM, I am certified as a personal trainer, and I also have a nutrition certification.
Okay. Wow, you got a whole bunch going on there. That's good. So let's dive into a little bit about working out. When it comes to working out, what would you say is the problem for a lot of people that like when people say like the New Year's resolution, what is something that you have found that people are having a hard time getting over when it starts to working out?
Yeah, so I think there's two things. I think, and we'll get into this probably a little bit later, but the first thing is like discipline. A lot of people don't realize motivation and discipline are two completely different things. But also, I think the biggest thing, especially when people are first starting out, is people try to change too many habits at once. And I'm all about micro changes, so changing one thing at a time and then learning how to habit stack because those changes will last a lot longer versus like if you're completely changing your diet, your sleep, your steps, that can become very overwhelming very fast versus like starting where you're at. Okay, this month I'm going to focus on hitting a protein goal. Next month I'm going to focus on increasing my steps. And like I said, those end up being changes that last a lot longer because it doesn't feel like a lot.
Okay. Yeah, that's That's a lot for, somebody that wants to actually get into it. What have you found that people that do decide to get into working out and get in shape, what's like the biggest mistake that you see that people make immediately?
Um, I mean, like I said, the biggest thing is probably trying to change too many things at once. But
Hmm.
also I think the biggest mistake is there's so many generalized plans out there. Like you could go on YouTube, you could go on TikTok, and you could search up workouts for XYZ, right? But what I caution against that is like everybody is so different and we all have different starting points and some people have injuries and they've got limitations. So that's where like kind of hiring a coach can come into play, especially when you're starting out because we can really take a look at your body head to toe. Okay, how are you squatting? How do you walk? Can you even get up from the couch. And then we can start transitioning into things like functional training. Because if you can't even get yourself to roll out of bed in the morning, why would I start giving you, like overhead presses and stuff to do? So I guess the biggest mistake would be simply that people are doing things that are more for like the generalized population and they're not really knowing where to start.
Okay. Okay. So they're basically getting this information off of what they seen on social media or they heard, but they're not really tuning in to what their body needs. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah, right. So they're essentially not listening to their own bodies.
Okay. Okay. So let's switch it a little bit. Peptides. Are peptides, are they really worth it? Are they worth the hype? Can you tell us a little about what are peptides and like what is that about?
Yes. So peptides are essentially amino acids, which are signals for the body. They tell your body to do certain things, not do certain things. Um, I think, obviously peptides have been big in the bodybuilding industry for a while, and now they're becoming more normalized to the mainstream world, which is awesome. I think that there are some peptides that might be overhyped, but I think recently there's been a lot of research, especially on like GLP-1s, retatrutide, where there's a lot of proof of effectiveness. So I think certain things that are not necessarily as heavily researched, or they're mostly only researched in animals. It's hard to say whether those are just hype or not. I think it's kind of hard to distinguish that when we don't have enough information. But for sure, there are ones out there with significant amounts of research, and there's more research coming out even today about them. And I think those ones can be life changing for some people.
Okay. So whenever looking at this information here, is it possible for somebody to actually get in shape without going to the gym? Like, is it possible to get into good shape without going to the gym? Because not everybody nowadays can afford going to the gym.
Absolutely. And I think, that also kind of circles back to like where everybody's starting point is, right? Like some people getting in shape might simply be going on an extra walk every single day. So I think you can. I think it depends on where you're at in your journey. And I think also if you're focusing on nutrition, that can help you get in shape a lot faster than just exercise alone.
Okay. So would you say that diet is the key factor, or is it diet and workout? Like, how does that play? Is it the person?
It's definitely diet and exercise, but again, it kind of depends on where they're at because if somebody is, like 400 pounds and, they've never dieted before, they've never gone to the gym, I wouldn't necessarily expect them to go to the gym right away. I would have them focus on their diet, making sure to hit a protein goal, and then also maybe getting like a step goal because, steps are going to equal cardio, and cardio is also part of that exercise component.
Okay. Okay. So, as far as in when it comes to diets, is it okay for people to have a cheat day?
I think, okay, so I know this is very controversial. Personally, I think yes, but it also depends on, like, again, where you're at. So if you're somebody who, you're trying to get on track and you haven't been able to even lock down staying on plan for a week, that's something you kind of need to ask yourself, are my goals big enough that I'm willing to not have a cheat meal for a couple of weeks, or is this really gonna make me feel better about it? And personally, in my experience with a lot of my clients, if I give them a quote unquote cheat meal, then they go off
Mm.
the rails. But if I give them a free meal, or what we like to call in the bodybuilding world is a refeed, which just means more calories, usually of like the same meals that they're already eating, then that usually helps them. It carries them a lot further.
Okay. So whenever they're having these, I guess you say these meals that they normally don't eat, um, is that how can you put this? Is that actually like normal for people to do that in between trying to work out, or do some people just crash out when they do that?
Like as far as
Some of your
freeing
clients.
meal,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it depends. So every that's something else where everybody's different. I want to backtrack. This is why coaching is so important because it takes a lot of the guesswork out, and also like having somebody who's actually a professional in this industry is going to help you so much. But it depends. So there are some clients who've had histories of eating disorders. So we don't call them cheat meals, or we kind of like learn what their trigger foods are, and I'll put like a refeed with like whatever they normally eat on a day to day in their meal plan. I have some clients where I'll give them a little bit of freedom. For example, my best friend is my client, and she, I told her she could have one free meal a week on the weekends because the weekends is where she struggles. But recently we've had to kind of reel that back a little bit. Why? Because she's been having these free meals and then it turns into a cheat weekend, right? So we
Okay.
had that discussion. How bad do you want your goals? And she's like, I want to hit them, and I want to hit them by this deadline. She has a trip coming up, and it's like, okay, so we have to be realistic, right?
So do you think that when people fast, is that beneficial, or like how do you feel about when people fast?
Yeah, I love this question. So I personally used to fast. I currently don't. And again, with my best friend, we had this discussion as well because she does intermittent fasting. I think it is beneficial in the sense that it teaches people like a cutoff time. Like you should generally stop eating about an hour to 2 hours before bedtime just to make sure that you can digest your food properly. Um, but not necessarily, limiting yourself. If you're somebody who's gonna go work out in the morning, or if you're somebody who you wake up starving, like don't deprive yourself, go feed yourself, especially something high protein first thing in the morning. That's going to carry you a long ways. But personally, I stopped intermittent fasting. I started just, I cut off about like 10 p.m. every night is like the latest I'll eat, and then go from there.
So the people that actually uh, eat a lot of protein, do you feel that protein is a big factor in all your meals that you have, or can somebody just have a salad without no protein? Like.
I would highly recommend protein in every single meal, and I tell my clients this as well. If you're gonna go have a snack, have protein with it. There's a YouTuber I watch, he literally eats donuts. He's this super jacked CrossFit guy, Nick Dompier, if you know who that is. And he will go and eat like two, three donuts, maybe more. But what does he have with him? He has a protein shake, right? And that's for multiple
Right.
reasons. If you're eating empty carbs, especially like a donut, you're gonna get hungry very fast, and it's not gonna feel like you are very full. So what protein does, it slows down the digestion, it keeps you fuller for longer, and it also helps to prevent those blood sugar spikes. So if I was eating just the donut, I would have a blood sugar spike
Hmm.
and then I'd have a crash, right? But if I have the protein with it, it's more kind of steady, right?
Okay, you're keeping a balance in that. Now, whenever it comes down to like a bowel movement, is it normal for people to have a bowel movement every day? Or
Yes.
if they don't have a bowel movement, is that like does that mean they're dehydrated?
It could mean all sorts of things. So it kind of that's
Yeah.
where a coach would kind of like talk to somebody and evaluate, how's your nutrition been, how's your digestion, what usually makes it good, bad, did you do anything different? You should be having a bowel movement pretty much every single day. Now I do know that there are people out there that'll have them and it's like every other day or every second day. As long as that's your normal, that's your normal. But I know
Right.
like most people typically should probably be going like clockwork.
Okay. So you should definitely be putting enough into the tank to be able to push it through that sometime within 24 hours, right?
Right. So fiber and water.
Fiber and water is a big one. Okay. Uh, how do you push yourself through the day? Like, how do you, when you're working out, how do you push yourself through the day whenever you're not feeling it? Like, what makes you go?
Oh my gosh. Trauma. No, I'm just kidding. Now,
Yeah, we all got that shit, right?
right, right. So honestly, like what keeps me going is just understanding that I have a big goal. My goal is to go pro in bodybuilding, and however long that takes, like on those days where my coach is really pushing me and I'm like at rep 25 and I don't want to keep going, I'm like, okay, the girl next to me on stage who's gonna win first place, like, is she stopping? So I kind of bully myself a little bit. I don't recommend that for everybody. But that's
Hmm.
where the conversation comes into play of discipline versus motivation, right? Discipline always overtake motivation any day. I'm not motivated every single day. I'm not motivated to go and eat my meals and eat the same thing every single day, but I stay disciplined because I know it's going to get me to my goal the fastest. And when I hit that goal, I'm going to be so grateful and so proud of myself that I stuck through it.
Okay. So
Or throw
this is
on a
something
good
that I don't know. What'd you say?
I said or throw on a good song.
Right, right, right. So here's something that it bothers me, and I never did this in my life. When it comes to counting calories and macros, like is is that real? Is it worth it to do that? Or is that like old stuff to do?
I think more so protein is more important, but they're both important. Just kind of having an idea where you're at calorie wise is always important to know. I always say that the number of calories you're eating will determine your weight. The macro breakdown, so protein, fats, and carbs, will determine how that weight looks on your body. So, like for me, right now, I literally weigh the exact same I weighed 2 months ago, but I look insanely better. So it just comes down to that breakdown. And then especially for people on either weight loss journeys or they're trying to gain muscle, like you need to be tracking protein because I promise you you're 9 times out of 10 severely under eating for what you need to be. Even for weight loss, you should still be eating mostly protein. So like as a general rule of thumb, for every pound you want to weigh, so if somebody weighs like say they weigh 200 pounds, they want to weigh 150. They should be consuming 150 pounds or 150 grams, not pounds, of protein.
Right.
150 pounds would be a lot. That's a little overkill.
Oh yeah, that'd be a whole bunch. Elephant, right?
Right, right. Or if they're 100 pounds and they want to be 150, again, should still be eating 150. And then I think the biggest thing is like when people start tracking their fats, I'm not like, I don't micromanage my clients tracking like their carbs and fats. I more so have them track their fats for themselves to understand. Like when they do it for the first time, a lot of people are shocked by how much they're going over on fats, especially saturated fats, right? Because the saturated fats are the ones that stick and actually show on our body. And
Like what? Like what's the saturated fat for the viewers and listeners?
yeah, so pretty much if they have like unhealthy stuff, so processed meats, processed cheese, um, oil, it has some saturated fats, uh, things of that nature, things that are just processed.
What is it? Ultra processed, highly ultra processed foods are never good for the body. One thing I will tell you that with my weight loss journey that I learned the hard way was that when I decided that I want to stop eating so much processed foods, that I was going to leave the sugar alone. I was going to stick to the natural sugar. That whenever you lose the body fat, you can also lose the muscle as well.
Mhm.
And, I think that's where people they think like, well, I gotta stop eating. Well, you're not going to eat that junk, but also your body, I don't think your body knows like, hey, I'm gonna just lose all the fat and keep the muscle. I think your body just evacuates everything. And that's where I had a hard time doing it. I was like, I'm actually feeling weaker after I lost weight. And then I realized that I also lost my muscle mass as well. Have you seen that before?
I have, and usually when I see that, it's because you're severely under eating, especially protein. And then people not understanding, like sometimes people just truly don't understand, like when they cut down, especially for the first time, people usually think they have more muscle mass than they really do. So when they have that first initial cut, they're like, oh, like I feel a lot smaller, but they didn't realize how much fat was actually sitting on top of that muscle.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I recommend
Mm-hmm.
is definitely just, tracking that protein. And if you feel like if you're truly tracking it, right, and you still feel like you're losing it, then I would recommend increasing it.
So what is a good breakfast protein meal that you would suggest for people that you enjoy?
Okay. So I'm a savory girly. Right now, my coach currently has me on just like cream of rice and like I make protein whey drip on top. But like my favorite go-to, honestly, is avocado toast. So I have my toast, like my sourdough bread, that's a carb. I have my avocado, that's my healthy fats, and then I'll do one whole egg, and then I scramble egg whites, and then I put the whole egg on top to kind of like crack the yolk. Um, Lots of protein. It's got carbs and fats. Very well balanced breakfast for sure.
How many times do you eat a day?
I eat 5 to 6 times a day currently.
5 to 6 times. You see, that's the thing. Like, you know, the people that are out there listening, 5 to 6 times, that is hard. Sometimes people actually only eat a lunch and sometimes they'll go home and eat dinner and then they'll get in bed. You know, how do you balance out all of that in between working?
Right. So, one, just understanding first and foremost that if you're only eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you are going to experience much more significant blood sugar crashes, and that's going to make you feel tired and like throughout the day. But the biggest thing that, especially with my clients that I help them through with this problem specifically, is identifying foods that are fast grab and go things for them, right? So back last year around this time, one of my meals, so it's really, I have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then I have two snack meals that are like 200 calories. So like those typically would involve like a banana and a protein shake or a protein shake and a Rice Krispie treat before the gym, things like that where it's a usually a fast digesting carb and protein, but again, still having protein with that. So if you want to gravitate towards chips, okay, well, how about like a Greek yogurt dip or some cottage cheese with it or you know,
So balance it out.
right,
Basically, balance it out. If you, yeah, you bring some balance in it to where you're not filling your stomach to thinking that it's getting something nourishing and then end up not getting something nourishing,
and then
right?
more tired. Right.
Correct, correct. You know, so whenever when you think about it, I read into this as well in a couple books that everybody's body is pretty much like a sports car internally. Regardless of what your body looks like on the outer shell, your body is ready to work and to repair. So if you're given that vehicle inside your body the correct fuel, which is the number one fuel at the gas station, prices are crazy high right now,
Gosh.
but if you're giving it that top tier fuel, your body is going to start responding. Is that correct? That your body is going to start responding and your body's going to learn to start trusting you that you're going to put healthy foods in it.
Yes. And not even just internally, but externally as well. Because, after I stepped off a stage last year, I did my reverse, but then it was right around the holidays and I definitely had my fun. And as a result, for this is just an example, my face broke out and I was having hormonal acne for like a solid month. And then I started,
Really?
yeah, and then I was back in prep again. And, as I'm consuming like a regulated amount of water every single day and I'm back completely following my meal plan, now my skin is clear. So that's just an example.
Right, right. So, I mean, isn't it that your skin is the biggest organ on your body?
Yep.
Isn't that what they say? And isn't gut health, like, can you talk a little bit about gut health and how does that come into factor when it comes to diet and working out?
Yeah, so gut health is a major thing. One, if you have poor gut health, you're not going to be able to absorb anything. So it's going to be hard for you to absorb proper macro and micronutrients from what you're eating. Um, But also, gut health is very important for mental health as well. And like mentally, if you're not feeling 100%, then that can prevent you from going to the gym in of itself. Oh, I'm feeling extra tired today, or I feel super anxious today. I'm just going to stay home. And then a lot of times people don't realize that they're feeding into that rather than combating it.
So, I know this might be a touchy subject right here, but let's talk a little bit about when you said about consuming things. How do you feel about energy drinks?
Ooh. So I'm a victim, but I think everything in moderation. I think there's a lot of things that are demonized nowadays. Like, for example, there's a lot of stigma around diet sodas. Do you realize how much of the diet sugars you actually need to cause poor bodily functions? Like, you'd have to consume, what was the statistic? It was like 50 diet sodas actually do something, and nobody's sitting
Right, right,
there 50. So,
right, right.
I think
So our bodies put up with a lot, basically.
right, right. And I think in moderation, like as long as you're taking care of your health, like you're balancing it with enough water, one energy drink a day is not gonna hurt you, and take that with a grain of salt. Everybody's different, assess your tolerance as necessary. Some people are super sensitive to only 50 milligrams. Personally, I can have 600 and I'm barely feeling anything. So it kind of just depends on your tolerance. But again, also making sure you're drinking enough water, because the biggest issue, especially as a nurse, that I see with caffeine consumption is people not hydrating. And then, you know, caffeine in general makes you dehydrated and it puts a lot of stress on the kidneys.
Yeah, because I actually know on like some TikToks lives that people are talking about they can drink coffee all day long.
Yeah.
All they do is drink coffee, and I'm like, is there a glass of water at all in between that coffee? And they don't. They're like, no, I just drink coffee all day, and I'm like, that's not good for your kidneys
No.
at all.
People wonder why they
And you're like, what? What'd you say?
people wonder why they get kidney stones.
Yeah, right, correct. So, you also you're on different platforms. You're over on Instagram, and you have different viewers and listeners as well.
Yeah.
You said that there was some Q&A questions that you had from some of your peoples.
Okay, so I have them. I got some questions over there.
Yeah, let's see what they got.
So the first question I got is about like what kind of training I offer, which I kind of understand people wondering this because I was originally in person, then online, and I've kind of gone back and forth. So currently I'm a hybrid coach. So I do both in person in Tampa, and I also do a lot of online. Online is usually, I'd say it's good more so for people who are obviously not here, but they're just starting out. Maybe they need some guidance and they need those weekly check ins. It's definitely good for accountability. But if you're somebody who's looking for that next level, then, in person's always going to win every single time.
Correct. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes people need that face-to-face energy. They need to feel those vibes face to face, you
Yeah,
know?
and there's nothing like a coach pushing you in person. I mean, myself, I actually switched coaches myself. I had an online coach. I love her to death. It hurt me truly to leave her, but I knew that if I wanted to hit that next level myself, I needed somebody in person who could literally push me every single time.
You need that in-person energy. You need that accountability.
Right.
Because I feel like when you're on like a screen with somebody, if you're not really happy what they got to say, you got to in your mind. All I got to do is just turn off the screen,
Right.
and they go away. Versus to being in person, they're holding you accountable for that.
Right. And then also, if you're new to the gym, it might be more beneficial to have somebody in person because, yes, again, you can watch YouTube videos and see whatever exercise, right? But when somebody is there in real time, giving real time corrections, it makes a world of a difference.
Okay. So what's the next question? You got another one?
Right. So, I, I got, what would you tell someone who's been stuck at the same weight for months? Tell them you
Ooh, what was that?
I said I would tell them need a coach. And why is because there can be literally 20 different reasons why your weight has plateaued. And we need to assess, have you changed your nutrition recently? How many calories are you at? What's your protein? What is your weight? What was your starting point? Are you possibly recomping right now, right? Are you gaining muscle while simultaneously losing fat? There's so many different reasons why somebody could be at a plateau. And, you could try to make adjustments yourself, but again, having somebody who's knowledgeable and a professional in the industry is going to carry you a lot further every single time.
Okay, so to add to that one right there, she said the question was on her Q&A was what kind of advice do you have for someone that where they're stuck at the same weight? And she said obviously you would want to get a coach because if you get a coach, the coach can kind of pop the hood and see exactly what seems to be the issue.
Right.
So they're going to check to see exactly what your intake is, see exactly what did you change because from my experience that I have learned that your body once your body learns to start to trust you, it works correctly. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand that your body, your stomach, once your stomach knows and your body knows, like, hey, I can relieve all this extra fat on my body because I know such and such is going to feed me later on.
Mm-hmm.
So the communication needs to be established, and the best way to communicate is with protein. Like, what is that correct?
Like as far as like when somebody's approaching a coach or
Yes, yes.
so really just knowing a lot of things like protein, activity level, and like I guess aside from hiring a coach, like the biggest advice I'd say is track where your protein is at and actually track your food. Like some people are like, oh yeah, I track my food. Okay, are you just tracking protein? Are you like eyeballing it? Like what's going on, right? Like actually track every single thing for a week and see if that makes any changes. But again, also if you're like recomping, um, I tell my clients all the time, don't go based off of your weight. Go based off of how you look and how you feel. Because again, personally, I'm the same weight that I was 2 months ago, but I look completely different.
Right, right. That's crazy because you lose the fat, gain muscle,
Exactly.
and your coach can keep up with that.
Right.
That's what Autumn can do. In her location, and she also does. She has an app coming. You said you had an app coming out soon.
Yes. So I'm currently utilizing Everfit for my clients, but I'm working with a software developer and he is building an app and I will be one of the coaches on his platform. So
Congratulations. That's great. That is super exciting. So, the touch base on here when it comes to the foods that you consume and your body has to be able to trust you. Um, somebody's okay, let's be honest here. You had a long day, you eat dinner, and excuse me, and sometimes people wake up to have a late night snack. What would you suggest is a good late night snack if somebody's going to get up and go down to the refrigerator?
okay, well, it depends on what kind of snacker you are. So, like, if you're, I gravitate towards ice cream, there's protein ice cream. Have that it, have the whole dang container. It's the same calories as if you had one serving of, like, a big container of ice cream. But that's a good one. And then, I don't know, like, if you're like a savory person, you could always do like chips and, like I said, like a Greek
Hummus?
dip. No, hummus is not. I mean, hummus is good, but it's not necessarily high protein, right? So that's
Okay.
another good point too. Is like looking at the ratio of protein to fats. If they're like 1 and 1, it's probably not a great snack. But if the protein's at least double whatever the fats is, it probably is a little bit better. So I was thinking like cottage cheese is a good one for me at night. Like I'll just literally eat cottage cheese by myself. String
Right.
cheese. It depends on what kind of snacker you are, though. They got like
Okay, it all depends
sauces
on what it is.
nowadays. They got everything.
Right. So do you think that everybody, I mean, majority of the population, in your experience, do you think that they should eat more than 3 times a day? Like, do you think that's a healthy way for a human's body how to treat it?
I think I think, trying to aim for 4 a day is better than three, and four smaller meals, right? So people will typically do 3 meals of like anywhere from 600 to 800 calories. But it's better to have higher protein, smaller, and more frequent meals for sure, especially because of the blood sugar regulation. But also just overall, it's going to help you get to your goals.
Awesome, awesome. Any other Q&A questions, or what we
I
got going
have
on now?
one more. This
All right, let's get
I
this one
saved the
more in
best for
for.
last.
All right, that's cool. Save the best for last. What you got?
So I was asked weight loss tips and help for the girlies with PCOS and thyroid issues, which is a very good question. I've had a few of these clients. And I know the biggest thing obviously is keeping the body low stress. So as a coach, I like to prescribe both cardio and strength training. For my PCOS girls, I'm definitely not going to prescribe as much cardio. And if I do, it's going to be at a much lower heart rate goal than I would provide for somebody else. And then also focusing on, high protein intake. That's a non negotiable for most people, but specifically for people with these hormonal issues, it's going to help prevent those imbalances. Um, and again, like I was talking about insulin sensitivity and meal timing and preventing the blood sugar drops and stuff. So as if you're having more frequent meals throughout the day, you're going to prevent those crashes and you're going to feel better overall. So a lot of times those girls are severely under eating. And I love them to death. They're my favorite to work with.
Nice, nice. That's some good questions there. That is really good. So that's the last one right there you got for the questions.
Yes, yes. So PCOS, thyroid,
Okay.
lift heavy, eat a lot of protein. chill.
Okay, y'all heard the tips right there. You heard the tips. So I like to ask the guests before you leave, if you can describe your life right now in 3 words, what would you describe? How would you describe your life in 3 words?
Oh goodness. Chaos, blessed, and ooh, entertaining.
I like that one. That's a good one right there. Autumn, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. I'm honored that I got to be on here twice.
Hey, you know what? We're gonna have to do another part 3 on it to see where you're at, especially after you get that app to take off. One other thing as well, for all the listeners and viewers, uh, how can they get a hold of you? What are some things that I can actually put on her?
Yeah, so my email is autsaulty. It's AUTSAULTY at gmail.com. Or, just reaching out to me directly through my link on TikTok, Instagram. I'm on both of those. And I am on YouTube as well, but I don't really see messages on there, so pretty much TikTok and Instagram are gonna be the go-tos.
Okay, what state are you in again? Are you in Florida right now?
Florida. And then I have a direct link I can give you as well to my booking link. I do a free intro call for anyone who's interested in coaching, just to sit down and kind of talk about where they're at and like to see if I can even be of service to them. So I can send you that link as well, and people are more than welcome to fill it out if they have questions or, you know.
Awesome, awesome. Okay. Hey, Autumn, like always, my friend, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
See ya.